Hello, I'm Troy Gilbertson. I'm here to talk to you about improving sanitation compliance in meat establishments. A little bit of an overview here. Good sanitation in a meat establishment helps you to stay in business, protect your brand, and produce quality products for the consumers. Some of the quality tools that I use in this presentation we will go over is a flowchart, SIPOC diagram, which is supplier, input, process, output, customer. The PDCA and current versus future state graph. PDCA is plan, do, check, act. The fishbone diagram and the 5 whys. I also have a SPC chart, which is statistical process control and relationship diagram. I have a tree diagram we will talk about, a matrix diagram, and lastly, the force field analysis. Here we have the flowchart. This is used for mapping out the process when it comes to developing a sanitation program in an establishment. It can also be used as a tool to help determining what steps to take in the event of a failure in your sanitation system. Here we have some yes and no's, as you can see on here. Those help to guide you in the right direction. For instance, if the assessment was okay, yes, you would go on to develop your sanitation SOPs. If the assessment was not, you may receive a non-compliance, and so on. Next, we have the SIPOC diagram: suppliers, inputs, process, outputs, and customers. This diagram can help you from a process management perspective. It helps you understand how a process works and who it may affect. On the left here, we got the USDA FSIS. The inputs to that would be sanitation SSOPs. You would be performing a sanitation assessment. Compliance documentation would happen with that, and your customer would obviously be the regulatory agencies. Go down to the third one. You have plant management. You have training programs with that. Then you go on to develop your SOPs. The sanitation is verified, and that would be by management. Next up, we have the PDCA, Plan, Do, Check, Act. I have to apologize. This one I was struggling with getting maybe a little more legible. Hopefully you'll be able to see it at the end of my presentation. I'm able to provide you handouts so you'll be able to read it a little clearer. But this was developed by Dr. W. Edwards Deming to show what the plan will be and how you will achieve the goal of this plan. It lists out the steps you will take to plan, do, check, and act. If followed thoroughly, you'll be able to achieve quality and productivity to ensure your sanitation measures will be appropriate to produce safe food in your meat establishment. Number 1 here, we have improving sanitation compliance in meat establishments. You would record audit results, monitor the statistical process control chart, which we'll go over a little bit later in this presentation. Then you would compare that SPC chart to data to the scientific support that you have on file, and you would put into work the new SSOP that you developed, or just update the one that you currently have. So yeah, this is a nice document to be able to use as another tool, another quality tool. Here we have the current state versus future state sanitation compliance. I developed this document to show the compliance percentage throughout 1 year. Currently, we're in the range of about 75% compliance rate. That would be the red line. I would like to see that rate go up to about 95 to 98%, which is the green line. By following, all the examples in my presentation, it will help you increase that to the levels needed to maintain food safety and to protect your brand. Here we have the fishbone diagram. This is also known as the cause and effect diagram. Being able to improve quality by sorting out the causes of variations in the sanitation process and organizing the relationship between them is something that was developed by Kairo Ishikawa. Here we have it, cause and effect diagram. It helps to improve the sanitation process while you can see the causes and ultimately what the effects are of those causes. I have 6 categories on this: measurement, material, people, and then environment, methods, and equipment. Ultimately, you develop things under each topic. For instance, people, high turnover, you could be in a hurry, lack of caring. Ultimately, those things would cause poor sanitation. it's kind of neat seeing this diagram. This is one of my favorite diagrams. I think it can be very useful. It makes you really think about some of the, once you get a category and think about the things listed underneath it, it really makes you think about probably some things you maybe never thought about. So next up, we have the 5 whys. When you want to improve a process within your system or simply try to find the root cause of something, you ask why, not just once or twice. You would continue to ask it maybe 5 times, 6, 7, 8 times, but ultimately this is 5 whys. In using this, you can get to the root cause of a problem at hand. The example I have in a meat processing facility for sanitation is, why is the equipment dirty? Well, they're not being cleaned well enough after each shift. Why is it not cleaned thoroughly? Well, employees could be rushing, cutting corners, or not following the checklist. Why are they rushing or cutting corners and not following that checklist? Maybe they're not trained properly or have prior obligations where they need to leave early, so they're in a hurry. Why was the training insufficient and they need to leave early? Well, management could be in a hurry when they're training or not proper understanding of sanitation overall. Why was management in a hurry and not training properly as directed? Well, management could be under high stress with staff or high workload, lack of training themselves. They could also have no accountability for their work or lack of caring. Ultimately, here you get to the root cause of it. It could be lack of strong management or lack of food safety knowledge. This is something you could use for many different processes within your system. Here we have the SPC control chart that I mentioned earlier in my presentation, Statistical Process Control Chart. This chart shows the E. coli levels when it comes to sanitation on a slaughter floor. This is for an example of about, 13 weeks. Apologize. Having a sampling method to evaluate and verify your sanitation is a great way to have control over the process to help reduce or eliminate the hazard. As you can see in this chart, you have the upper control limit, which is the UCL there, and you have the lower control limit, the LCL, and the average, which is the green line there, or the mean. And then you have the E. coli counts, CFU as colony forming units, in the yellow line there. And this example was, like I said, weekly. The test results show that it's within the upper control limit and lower control limit, but in week 9 to 10 there was an increase. But ultimately, from week 1 to 12, it seemed to slightly increase every week. So by using this chart, you can see your sanitation might be slipping as the weeks go on, and you can visualize this and then make some process improvements within your system to bring the counts back to the lower levels. Ultimately, being inside your control limits may not be a terrible thing, but again, it's a nice visual tool to be able to see this and bring those levels back down. You want those levels to be at a very low level. Next up, we have the relationship diagram. This diagram helps identify problems that cause other problems. It's kind of like the 5 why analysis. It also helps you show some cause and effect instances so you can find out the root cause and helps for continuous improvement in your process. As you can see, we have poor management on the left bottom. Those arrows could lead to staffing issues or poor monitoring or lack of training. Ultimately, lack of training could lead to poor monitoring, no consistency. All these eventually lead to poor sanitation. And here we have the tree diagram. The tree diagram shows what your goal or vision will be. In this diagram, the vision on the left there in red is improve sanitation. You develop long-term goals, how you might measure them, and what your end target may be. As you can see, I've developed 3 of them: cheaper, cleaner, and safer. Reducing these levels ultimately will help improve your process and aid in reducing sanitation non-compliances long-term. Being able to visualize this may help when training employees and be able to show management team that you're thriving to maintain a high level of quality. Here you can see, like, annually on the cheaper supplies used, how you measure that, and your target. I would like to have a 50% reduction in cost for supplies that are used. At the very bottom, for safer, you have no cross-contamination annually. Reduce recall percentage, and I mean, that is something that you would want to reduce 100%. I know that might be a tough goal depending on certain things, but I think in reality that is one that should be achievable. We're dealing with safety here, so you have hygiene improvement, hand washing percentage, you want to reduce that too. So ultimately the tree diagram is another nice quality tool to use in your system. And we have the matrix diagram. The matrix diagram is another quality tool that helps you analyze and pay attention to relationship between a problem and what the impact may be. This lists out the causes or problems in the left column and the impact on safety, the workers, and the businesses on the top there. Using this will help organize data, set priorities, and guide your decisions. As you can see, poor hygiene, food safety impact would be handling meat could cause contamination. Impact on other workers, you could develop an illness and spread it to your workers, and you could have a bad reputation or possibly lawsuits. Poor facility design on the bottom there, hard to find dirty areas. You could have pooling water if your drainage or slopes weren't correct. Maybe your drains were plugged. You could have drains back up. That could be a poor design too, and ultimately those could lead to costly improvements that you might have to make. And here we have the force field analysis. I really enjoyed making this. I've never made one of these before, so when you're trying to improve sanitation in your meat processing facility, you may have some roadblocks or potential waste or cost of poor quality. And I developed this force field analysis to show what some of those may be. This analysis is a decision-making quality tool that helps you analyze the positive forces against the negative forces. The main goal, as you can see in blue, is improve sanitation compliance. I have developed a key at the bottom left there. This key is to demonstrate which forces may be stronger than others. The larger arrow is a stronger force and a smaller arrow is a moderate force. This will allow you to determine which ones might need more attention than some others. As you can see here, the forces kind of, they push against each other, and ultimately they both lead to that blue arrow. So I just really think this is a neat tool to use. And yeah, I think once you learn how to utilize it in your system you could use this in your whole system or a process. Once you learn how to use it, I think it's a really neat thing to visualize. And how are you going to sustain? Well, I think that using a checklist is a really good way to be able to make sure that you can sustain good sanitation compliance. Whether you're producing products daily, weekly, or even monthly, the sanitation matters. Being able to produce safe food while being short-staffed, having a high employee turnover rate, or just not being thorough in your sanitation monitoring, it can be prudent to have a checklist to help you remember what needs to be verified before operations begin, and during operations, and after operations. This is an example of a pre-operational sanitation checklist to help you sustain good sanitation practices daily. And this is ultimately a model, so all of these quality tools and checklists and things, you can change them to match your process and better fit your system. As you can see here, I have some things listed out. For the date at the top, you would put the date, you would put a check mark in the box, and at the very bottom you would put your initials, so you would know who performed the pre-operational check in the morning before operations begin. And next here we have an operational checklist. This is a checklist that you would use, let's say, after you begin, but during operations. So let's say you're working with products throughout the day. There's going to be somebody there monitoring you as you're working to check for these things that I've listed. Down towards the middle we have employee hand washing is acceptable. If you are observing employees perform hand wash as they should, they can check this off, and if they're not doing it properly, you would put an X in there. And at the right hand side where it has notes, corrective actions, you would have to complete a corrective action on that and address the issue. So ultimately, Once you use this and all these tools in my presentation, you might end up with 100% quality. Being able to stay in business and produce quality food and be proud of the products going out to consumers is something that all meat processing establishments should have as goals and a vision for their future. Quality tools matter. Use them and protect your brand. Thank you.